So I'm going to turn Periscope on. Getting this figured out. And so I got on a little early tonight because we're having issues with I can't think and talk at the same time. Having issues with people still having trouble finding the live stream. So we're trying to troubleshoot that. So, and my screen on my phone is locked. Maybe. Yes. No. Why? Crap. What am I doing? So. Oh, no. Ha! It's not locked. Ha! Okay. Yay. Yay for small victories. I don't know what I did or what I didn't do, but. Okay. Let's see. Let me get to the YouTube chat. Okay. It looks like. Cool. Doug is here. Overcoming Understanding is here. Cecilia's here. Martine is here. And yes, hello, hello. Greetings to you as well, my dear. How are you? Terry is here. So people are hopping on. We have 4 people on Periscope right now. So let's see. Hi, Dana. Quick thank you. You've helped me so much. Well, you are so very welcome, and I'm so glad that I have. So that was a message from Periscope. Oh, here's another one. Hi. Oh, well, thank you very much. Hi, Dana. You're gorgeous today. I love the blue. Well, thank you. It's funny. I get a lot of flack. Not a lot. I get some flack, I should say, from people who don't like it when I wear shirts that show my shoulders. And like, I've gotten a handful of messages from people over the past year that say that it makes me look codependent. Like, just what a strange thing to say. Me showing my shoulders makes me look codependent. So yes, that's right, Adrian. Okay, I knew the name, but I wasn't placing it to you. So hi, Adrian. Cecilia says she's doing much better, so thank you for asking. That's good. Overcome. Overcoming understanding says people are so stupid. Yes, very strange. Like of all the things to say, that is a strange one. M. Fisher is here and says, I hope we're all having a great week. We have a little Philly. Like a little Philly is here. It says, hello, Dana. Henry Miller says, mean people suck. Oh, no, actually, he just says people suck. So, well, yeah, I know, right? Overcoming Understanding says, I was unaware that there is a codependent dress code. That makes 2 of us. So, yeah, very strange. So, it's weird with 2 cameras going right now, I have to just say. Henry says, yes, mean people suck too. Yes, yes, they do. So, M. Fisher, how is your week going? Traveling Wolf says hello. He actually says hey all, but I just shortened that to hello. Overcoming Understanding says, yeah, I know that the Periscope chat doesn't stay up for very long. Peace Pom Pom's here. Hey, Peace Pom Pom. Ghost Hunter is here. Hello. So, M. Fisher says, my week has been up and down. LOL. Lauren is here. Been there is here. So we're getting lots of people on here. Hopefully. So, okay, when you guys hop onto the live stream, how are you getting here? Are you just clicking my channel? That image and that's how you're finding it, or is there more to it than that? Because I think I keep mentioning this, but I think what I see, kind of, which is behind the scenes of it all, is different from what other people see when they come to my channel. And so I'm having all these people that are, having trouble getting on to the live stream. Adrian is here. Okay, overcoming understanding. It says, I pull up your channel. I got a question on Periscope. Says, what is this broadcast about? Well, this broadcast is about, this is just for like a live question and answer and support broadcast for anybody that's going through or is kind of recovering from an abusive or toxic relationship of any kind. And so I answer questions, and the audience, it's also a live stream on Facebook. I'm sorry, on YouTube. So in that chat as well, people also answer questions. So it's just kind of a general Q&A. Or if you haven't been in an abusive relationship of any kind with, and we're talking about like parents or abuse of any kind or toxic relationship of any kind, I think a lot of people in the general public also have questions about abusive relationships. So if you have any questions at all, just feel free to ask and we'll do our best to answer them. So Hot Potato is here and asks, did you guys start a little earlier today? Kind of. Kind of. I did, mainly because we're trying to troubleshoot people getting onto the live stream, because that seems to be kind of this like ongoing issue, and I don't know why. So Kimberly's here, says, the last text I got from my narc just 10 minutes ago says it will never be over. That's kind of scary, isn't it? So how did you feel about that? True Love says, it's been a difficult week, 36 days no contact, struggling every day to not reach out to him. The bad dreams have started again and missing him. Total cognitive dissonance. Constantly watch videos and reading to stay strong. So 36 days is a long time for no contact, so good for you. I'm glad that you're doing that. And just stay strong. If you haven't already done the whole writing out your list of the for when you miss him, right? So in that list, you just kind of want to make a quick list of just bullet points of all of the reasons that this relationship is toxic for you. And you really want to pick points that hurt when you read it, because that'll help to kind of cut through that fog of cognitive dissonance. So listing out specific things that he's done, and then when you do miss him, when on those moments you are feeling weak, then you can go back and read that list, and it'll kind of make you realize, oh right, this is why I've got to stay gone. Because nostalgia can be a really tricky thing, and it's easy to slip back into the missing them and thinking about the good times and all of that. So it's important that you are able to stay kind of grounded and in the moment. Yes, M. Fisher says, and the best thing to remember is that this person will not change. Oh, and Cecilia's grandmother passed away. I know that this has been kind of an ongoing thing for a few weeks now, that she hasn't been doing well. So I'm really sorry to hear that, Cecilia. Hugs to you. It's nice that you guys were close. So, oh, that's nice. Peace Pom Pom says, Cecilia, well then love and blessings to the heavens for her. I love that. That's very nice. Cecilia says, I'm dating somebody super healthy and sweet and considerate, and it makes me think, Dave who? That is fantastic. And isn't that so funny? Because that's exactly how that happens, right? So when we meet somebody new who is really treating us well, and it's so much easier, I think, to move on, because we're no longer having kind of that attitude of scarcity, because I think that's what happens a lot of times in relationships, and it's just this feeling of we're not going to find anybody else like them. And then we realize, oh, life does go on. There are new relationships out there that make us feel even better. So I'm glad that you're moving forward. Adrian says, I want coffee, Dana. I am drinking tea. No coffee for me. I would be up all night. Okay, BBR says this channel has a little icon on the lower right side that says live chat. I wonder if the live chat icon is always there or only when I go live. Little Britches says, hello everyone. Dana, thank you so much for your channel. You've brought me much comfort and clarity over the past year. That is fantastic. I am so glad. I'm so glad that the channel's been able to do that for you. And I think there's so much clarity that comes from just being validated. Because honestly, I'm probably not telling you stuff that you didn't already know deep down inside. But I think it's really helpful to hear from somebody else that yes, what you're experiencing is as problematic as what you were thinking. So it's just connecting with other people and realizing that you're not alone in this, and that you're not crazy, that you're not being too sensitive, and that you're not jealous or possessive or have trust issues, and or that you can't take a joke, or do you know what I mean? Because they use a lot of that. So it's not you. Let's see. Great. M. Fisher says, and I've discovered that being alone isn't all that bad. I kind of like being with me. And that is the key. I'm going to see if I can stop this chat here for a second. Oh, I can. Good. So, yeah, right? So, like, learning to love ourselves, learning to be alone, be comfortable with being alone is so, so huge. And, a lot of it's just this whole concept of, if we can really love ourselves, if we're comfortable being alone, then it makes it when we do bring people into our lives, they're there because we want them to be there. It's not that we're bringing them into our lives because we're lonely or desperate. So huge, huge, benefit to just being comfortable with being alone. Because we all want people, ideally, that enhance our lives. And so if you really like your own life, then that person's really going to have to be a step up from you liking your own life. Adrian says, Dana, when would you stay with us on the chat after you finish a live stream? I could see about doing that at some point. The only issue with that is it's so much later here, and I have to get to bed in order to get up for work in the morning. And I tend to go to bed pretty early. So for me to stay up until about 11 o'clock anyhow is really pushing it for me, because I'm normally probably sound asleep by like 10 normally. Jasmine says, good morning from London. Hello, London. It's so fun having people from all over the world here. It's just so neat. Okay, Practical Dreamer says, I thought I got all of the narcs out of my life, and now my best guy friend is exhibiting traits. He's acting like a jerk because he has a new girlfriend and he doesn't think his behavior is bad. Is he acting like a jerk to the new girlfriend or to you? Lauren is here. Let's see, Jasmine is here. Melanie is here. Oh, good. Melanie says, my ex-narcissist is getting married next month. He's been with his girlfriend for 4 months. I'm actually happy about this. I would not feel this way if I had not come across your channel. Knowing what I know now helps me through this terrible discard. Thank you so much. I am so glad that the channel and this info and these live streams and everything really does help. Because I know, I think we all know, right? Like how crazy making it is, and how we really wonder, is it us? Like, why did they just up and run off? And how is it that they can move on so quickly and want to get married so quickly? But, normal people don't move at that speed. Healthy people don't move at that speed is really kind of what it is. So I'm glad that you're moving forward and that you're healing and focusing on you. So okay, I'm gonna look for practical. Oh, okay. Practical Dreamers comment says, um, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm confused. The girl he's dating is a professional rival of mine. Um, okay, they used to, her and her best guy friend used to hang out all the time. He would initiate them hanging out. I hate it though because I know it means more pain and one less person in my life who I thought was special. I'm running out of those. So that's kind of the funny thing with boundaries is when we have somebody that's like really problematic in our life, the benefit to that is that it makes us take a step back and really examine kind of in what other areas do we have kind of weak or poor boundaries. And so this was a big aha moment for me, and I think this probably goes for a lot of people as well. Is if we're struggling with something in one area, we're probably struggling with something in other areas as well. And boundaries is a big one, and self-esteem is a big one. And so a lot of getting tangled up with problematic people does tend to kind of boil back down to self-esteem and boundaries. And so I always encourage people to examine, what are your friendships like? Do you have a series of one sided friendships where you're the one, that it's always there for your friend, but they're not really there for you, kind of a thing? Or, just, how are you with jobs? How have, the past, all of like examining the different significant relationships in your life, whether it's with friends or family or relationships, and seeing kind of, is there a pattern there? Because for me, I didn't realize that for a really long time, that there was a pattern of me having poor boundaries. I just kept falling into the whole thought process of, well, nobody's perfect, and and then focusing on everything that was right about that person, which that can be really great, but not to the point where we're glossing over major red flags, stuff that would be deal breaker behavior. So it's something worth thinking about. And I think a lot of times too, the healthier we get, the more we do realize, oh, we're outgrowing certain people in our life, and that's normal. And you just kind of, life and your friends evolve as you do. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I get it. It's sad when that happens. So let's see. Lori says, "Hi, Dana. Lately, I've been having a problem with being able to stand up for myself in certain situations. Do you have any advice to help me become more of a firm person so that people don't feel like they can walk all over me?" I think the only solution to that is boundaries, and you're just going to have to practice setting them, and it's going to feel very uncomfortable at first, most likely. Okay, you're probably going to feel mean. You're probably going to feel a lot of like anxiety and stress with doing that. Actually, it was funny, a friend of mine and I were talking about this exact same thing today. But what feels like this giant mountain that you have to overcome with like setting boundaries with another person, the more you set boundaries and earlier on, the more that like massive issue that you have to tackle like shrinks down. So it no longer is like this giant, mountain that you have to overcome. It shrinks down to a little tiny pebble in your shoe. And so the more practice you get with setting boundaries with people, and the more experience and the more skilled you get with spotting problematic behavior, the less that kind of stuff happens. So a lot of it, you can do with kind of anticipating what your response might be ahead of time. So let's say if you have certain situations that maybe tend to happen over and over again. Let's say somebody's asking you to continually watch their child. I'm just making something up, right? And you have a hard time saying no. So practicing ahead of time, being like, if they come to your door and they say, well, I really need you to watch Little Johnny, saying, you know what, I really enjoy watching Little Johnny, but I've got things I need to do, and I would love to watch him, but I can only watch him on Saturdays for between like 1 and 6 p.m. Or kind of like whatever you're comfortable with. But it helps to get clear in your mind, because that's the thing is, people that have weak boundaries, we will continue to be treated like doormats until we get better boundaries. And that just takes a lot of practice. And and part of boundaries, it's asserting the boundary. So it's saying, yeah, I can only watch Little Johnny from 1 to 6 on Saturday. The second part of that is going to be enforcing that boundary. So if they go to pick up their child and they roll up at 8 o'clock, then to say, you know what, I have things I need to do, or I can't watch Little Johnny after 6 o'clock, and then you kind of have to reinforce that boundary. And then if they still don't respect it, then there's consequences, right? So maybe the consequences are that you don't watch Little Johnny anymore, right? Or that I don't, something else happens, or that you have a phone number of a family friend that can then go watch Little Johnny, or something. So it's just kind of navigating like what you feel comfortable with. And here's the great thing with boundaries is you can tell when a boundary has been violated based on how you feel. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling resentful, if you're feeling irritated, those kinds of feelings, that means that you've had a boundary that's been violated. And so other people don't know where our boundaries are. So it's really important that we are able to be assertive enough to say, hey, that I'm not okay with that. Or, I'm not okay with being talked to that way. Or, I'd love to help, but I can't this time. Or, there's a million different ways that we can stand up for ourselves and be polite and be open and honest and sincere and on the level with that. So I hope that helps. If you want to discuss more, specific situations, definitely feel free to bring them up in the chat. Okay, let's see. Lauren asks, is it common that narcissists are hypersexual? I think so. The vast majority of them that I have met have come across and have heard about from other people are. So my guess would be too that that's probably like the number one sign that people start searching for when they're trying to get clarity as far as like what happened to them. So it's generally like some sort of cheating, or some sort of they might be looking up sex addiction, or bizarre fetishes, because a lot of narcissists, and I think a lot of it is that they tend to be very much instant gratification kind of people. So not all of them, but a lot of them. And so they just do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, with whomever they want to do it. And they just don't see that there's a problem with that. And so, sex is a, feel good, instant gratification kind of thing for a lot of people. And so I think, that this is another reason, we've got to be really careful on online dating sites, kind of for this reason, because it's really easy for people to pretend to be something different on an online dating site. As a matter of fact, I just had a guy message me today through an online dating site, saying, and I had specifically put in there, like, I'm not looking for anything casual, so no hookups, like, just I don't even want to, that's not what I'm about. So like, don't even go there. And he went there and he sent me this message saying something along the lines of, hey, I don't want to have sex, but we could meet up and we could just hang out and fool around. I hadn't even texted him with him or anything before. And I mean, so yeah, it's that kind of garbage that people do with online dating, and a lot of narcissists do. And, that's the thing. So people that are, instant gratification. So like a lot of narcissists and stuff, they're, a lot of victims will feel like, oh, well, I'm attracting them. I'm attracting them. A lot of these people, they just they just start knocking at all the doors and they just see who answers. So, this guy doesn't know me, doesn't know my past. He's just knocking on the door saying like, hey, do you want to fool around this weekend? He doesn't know me well enough to know my issues. So it's not like I'm attracting that. It's, he's probably sent out emails to a lot of different women that he wanted to fool around with. And whoever says yes, that's who he's going to go make out with. So, you know, Henry says, online dating sucks. Women constantly ask me how tall I am. Really? That's weird. I wasn't aware that height was an issue either. Yes, Adrian says, Henry, I suggest to find a real person is more fun. Forget online dating. Lauren says, what in the hell does hang out and fool around even mean? I don't know, but he might as well. Overcoming understanding says, is he 12? What's going on? I don't know. It was really, really weird because it's like if I'm not, I just the whole thing was just so ridiculous. It's like you might as well just ask if I wanted to have sex because if I've never talked to you before in my whole life and I would be okay with like hanging out and fooling around, then I'd probably be okay with having sex with some like rando guy. It just was like just ridiculous all the way around. Ha! Henry says, yes, and next time I will ask what their weight is. I think that's a really great response. I think you should. Um, Yeah, Practical Dreamer says, I had a guy who had gone on a few dates text me after a week of silence and say, come over and get naked. And I'd barely even kissed the guy. Goodbye. Yes, I agree. Very, very strange. Oh, that's nice. Vanessa says, um, he has to get my permission for any type of contact. Thank you all for having for me. Wait, thank you for me. Thank you all for me to have strength to fight and win my daughter. That is awesome. I'm glad that you um, won that battle. So that's exciting. Lavender says, "Is this Periscope? The quality is off." Hi everyone. I'm on Periscope and I'm on like this is YouTube. I guess me motioning that is not going to clarify anything because I've got two cameras going. But yeah. True Love says, even though I'm missing my ex, I'm looking at the online dating sites and have gone on dates because I do want to move forward. Sometimes I feel ready to date and other times I don't. Yeah, me too. I would like to date, but um, it's hard. It's hard to find people that we click with and, you know. Ray of Light asks, have you ever wanted to seek revenge for what your narcissist has done to you? Yeah, definitely early on. Um, I had a lot of rage for a long time, like a long time. And it just, it's so violating. It's just so violent. Well, there's a term out there called emotional rape. And that's exactly how it feels. It's somebody that intentionally just uses and abuses you. And it's as violating. It's the same emotional feelings that people go through when they are physically raped. So that's why I mean it's there's so many similarities there. Like there's the PTSD, there's the rage, there's the anger, there's the all of it. So yeah, I had a really hard time getting over that a person could just hurt me, have such terrible intentions towards me, and no remorse, like no empathy, no remorse whatsoever, and it was just all a sham. It just was it. It brought out a really dark, scary side of myself that I haven't really seen since, and that's scary and disturbing. Um, See, I was dating Jack was about 6 years ago ish, and Steve was about 3 years ago. The interesting thing is I'm so like in a crazy way. I am really thankful for my relationship with Jack because I was able to see all of the nonsense with Steve right away. So when all of that came to a head, it was a lot easier for me to walk away from and not even get tangled back into it with all of the hoovering and the nonsense and the lies, because that relationship, I think, really could have derailed my life big time. So it's, I mean, like once you kind of go through it once and you realize that there's people like this in the world, and you kind of ride that, not that you want to ride this like a learning curve because you don't want to ever have to repeat this, but once you realize kind of that there's people out there in the world that are like this, and that they kind of what they're about, then it's easier to kind of spot their behavior, and it's easier to emotionally, I think, distance yourself and detach when you start to see problematic stuff. Yeah, Hot Potato says it'll take me a long. Wait, hold on the chat. Uh, um, Revenge. It'll subside once the memories fade a bit more. And it does. Those feelings, the feelings of revenge, the feelings of anger, the feelings of all of that, they do fade with time. And of course, it really helps if you can try to squeeze out as much positivity as you can from this experience, and just really use it as like rocket fuel towards your own personal growth. So if you can do that, then that, I think, really helps to kind of move forward, and to not stay stuck in the past. So let's see, reading these comments here. BBR says this emotional rape, ah, like of what I went through a lot of times. Sometimes my ex narcissist seemed to be so sexually perverted. When he looked at me, I actually got the creeps. Not like he was looking at me at the oddest times. I would try to go upstairs and get ready for bed before he made it up there. And it's like he had these psychic abilities that he knew when I was changing clothes, and he would be right there when I would turn around, and he would just stare at me. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. There's definitely. Oh, what happened? What did I just do? Definitely that feeling of kind of that weird, like unwanted psychic connection. I think a lot of people experience this, especially when these relationships end. It's that feeling of, I don't want to think about them too hard or too long, because they tend to know, and then they just kind of surface out of nowhere. I don't know if you guys have had that happen, but that's really unsettling when that happens. Been there says, I had a huge rage towards my covert narcissist father and ex. I used to beat a chair with the karate bat and yell obscenities. When I understood narcissism, the rage dissipated. Yes, so getting that energy out, is so huge. And going to the gym, going for a run, going for a bike ride, going, um, you know, uh, like what you're doing, beating up a chair with a karate bat and screaming and yelling, getting into your car, screaming and yelling, doing stuff to get that anxious anger and energy out of your system. And that's healthy, and that's a good way to deal with it. So, let's see. Let's get some more questions here. I think Martine had mentioned earlier that the best way for men and women to date is to go about being friends first. And I would agree completely. I have a friend of mine who has said, her whole thing is that she just has decided not to date. And so what she does is she will make it a point to be friends with a guy and go do things with him, with there's like nothing that's going to happen anytime soon, and she makes it really clear to them, like, we're going to get to know each other, kind of this whole like courting type thing is what she calls it, where there's no dates. They split everything 50-50. They are just friends, and then after about a month or so, then they determine kind of whether or not there's something that's more there. And I think that can be a really, if you can keep your hormones in check, it can be a really great way to go about it. So Lauren says, I felt a lot of rage and anger. It's been much better since joining this community. So thank you, Dana, and everyone here. Yes, it's just that validation. I totally get it. It helps to know that you're not alone in feeling that way, and that it does pass. I think for me, that was one of the biggest things, was hearing from other people that I wouldn't always feel that angry or in that much emotional pain. Because I really wasn't sure. I really felt for a while, especially with Jack, that I was just broken and that I would never trust again, that I would never love again, that I would, I just didn't see a future. I just didn't know how I was going to get past that for the longest time. And so it wasn't until I found the the blog, oh gosh, what is it? Love Fraud. Interesting. She wrote a book and a blog, and it's a blog, and it's her true story of her life with the sociopath. Her husband was absolutely nuts, and just all kinds of like grandiose lies and double, triple, quadruple lives, and had just lied to her about everything. And they were married for quite a while, and she had made a comment on her blog, something about that she felt that what she needed to go through was part of her, I want to say she'd said it was part of her spiritual evolution, but she'd made it into something positive. And that was the first time that I had heard anybody say anything positive could come from abuse. And I remember just sitting there being like, huh, like, that's interesting. And kind of getting curious about how I could make this into something work for me instead of working so much against me. And then kind of realizing, yeah, this is up to me to decide how what I'm going to do with this experience in my life. And I might as well, I can let it destroy my life, or I can make it work for me, and that's my decision. It's not easy necessarily, but it definitely starts with just making that decision that this is not going to destroy your life. Even if you don't know how you're going to make it work for you, just making that declaration of, you know what, I'm not going to let this destroy my life. And then you start working towards getting clear on like what a good life does look like for you. And then spending time every day kind of bringing that into focus. And so I joke around because for me, when I would start feeling like angry and bitter and sad and all of these feelings, I would go like organize a junk drawer. I would go clean out my car. I would go do 20 jumping jacks. It was my way of trying to just get a hook into my ideal future and like bring it closer and do something with all of that negative energy and channel it into something positive. So I would encourage you guys to do the same and really get clear. Like my brother, and I've shared this before, he is a personal trainer. And I had called him, after Steve and I broke up, and I was so upset. And he'd made the comment, he's like, Dana, don't waste this energy. He's like, you have this really narrow sliver, this narrow window right now where you are in so much pain and you have all of this energy. Like, you can use this to radically change your life. And so he trains a lot of people that have been like really, really overweight, and then something major happens, and then they are able in that window of time to just radically change their life. And then, 6 months or a year later, they're in amazing shape. And he was right. I mean, like, you can take that energy and pour it into anything that you want to pour it into. So let's see. Lots of stuff going on. Lil Philly says, thanks for that insight, Dana. Well, you are welcome. And I hope that helps you guys too, because it's, you can make this really work for you. You really, really can. Let's see. Questions, questions, questions. Jen says, why do I miss my ex narcissist, especially when I'm on my period? I have no idea because I don't like anybody when I'm on my period. So that I cannot help you with that one. But she says, he hoovered me to the ground December, January, and early February. I still never met him, was rapidly discarded, and he moved on for somebody else. So they do that. They move very, very quickly, and this, you know, um, that's just that's just kind of what they do, and it's incredibly painful because for us, we're building a relationship, right? And for them, they just they're like little children. They have the attention span of a fruit fly oftentimes, and especially when it comes to like relationships. A lot of them are like, ooh, shiny and new, something shiny and new, and then they kind of go off for this next person and the next person and the next person. And a lot of them are monogamy, and any that kind of stuff is not. They'll take vows and stuff, but a lot of them, they just do whatever they want to go do because they feel justified in anything that they do. They feel justified in lying and all kind manipulating and all kinds of other behavior. So it's kind of silly to think that, oh well, they would be faithful. If a person's a liar, they're a liar. So like everything that they do is you have to assume that they're lying, because to assume that they're telling the truth is foolish, right? But yes, I'm sorry that you are going through that, and I'm sorry that you're missing him. I think it's a sign that, because what you're not missing him, you're missing the emotions that you felt when he was in your life, is really what it is. And so it's that feeling of feeling important, that feeling loved, getting that attention. So if you can find a way to get those feelings again in a more constructive, stable way. Dating is a hard, and I know it sounds like a catch-22, but it's really hard to get stability sometimes in dating. And so if we're missing those feelings, if there's a void in our life and we're feeling unimportant, unloved, or we're kind of starved out for attention and affection, dating is not where to go find that. Like spending time with friends, spending time with animals, spending time with children, those kinds of things is a much better way to do that. Ray of Light says all politicians must be narcissists. Well, probably a lot of them are, or sociopaths. They. So that's what they kind of do for a living, is they spin stuff and they manipulate and they have an agenda and they tell people what they want to hear. And I'm sure that there's some good ones out there, but you know, let's see. BBR says, did anyone have an experience where you left your narcissist, they tried to hoover you, and wait, hold on. And I actually wait. And I actually cried real tears and wanted and they actually cried real tears and wanted your forgiveness. That's what mine did, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Just wanted anybody else. I wanted to know if anybody else went through this, because he actually looks authentic. Even though they're supposed to be good actors, though. Yeah, mine did that. Jack did crocodile tears, which is like the weirdest thing if you've never seen an adult fake cry. Like, it's insulting is what it is. It's like, yeah, I can tell that you're not really crying because I'm not an idiot. Like, it was just the weirdest thing to see, kind of the wiping away tears that aren't even there. And it's like, what are you doing? Steve did cry and put on, but again, it just seemed disproportionate to like what was going on. So that, yeah, they do have displays of emotion, but it's like a little kid. Like, little kids can cry too, right? When they've been caught doing something, and they might cry real tears, but it doesn't mean that they're sincere. So you have to kind of go with your gut on that. And even still, so if you had issues in your relationship, right? and you guys broke up and everything, then if you had an issue with them and they need to have some action to change that, whatever the issue was, then you know those actions need to take place. And they need to take place over a prolonged period of time, so that you can tell that they're truly sincere. So it's not necessarily, it's not about like making up and breaking up. It's about, have there been any sincere changes made? And generally, people, again, narcissist or not, people that have problematic behavior in relationships, this isn't just like them deciding to flip a switch and stop being like this. Like, this is how they cope with a lot of things. Like, these are damaged people. So change for them is not something that's going to happen quickly. They most likely need pretty intensive psychotherapy in order to really do the digging and see, because a lot of them, with with the verbal abuse, with the gaslighting and the stuff that they say, and all of it, I really don't. I think there's probably half of them that do it, maybe not even half. There's probably maybe like the psychopaths and the sociopaths of the world that do it intentionally. But I think a lot of narcissists, yes, they realize what their behavior is problematic, but I don't know. I think a lot of them really do believe what they're saying. It's weird. They project a lot of their garbage onto us, and I think a lot of them really do believe it. So, I don't know. It's interesting stuff, but those changes don't happen quickly. When they have to unlearn behavior patterns and relearn how to cope with life and cope with stress, and kind of take on their own stuff. So there was a book that we read in the book club a couple months ago called The Verbally Abusive Relationship. Fantastic book. And she goes into a lot of detail about kind of the different components of a verbally, and I would say also emotionally, which is kind of one and the same, right? Relationship. And if you go to my website, narcissistsupport.com, if you go to this support group, it's you'll see a tab on there under the book club. It has all my notes for all of the different books that we read. So it's interesting to read those notes on that book, because she's really right on. So, okay, Benjamin is saying therapy made it worse with my ex. Yes, I definitely do not recommend couples counseling with a highly manipulative person, because these people are oftentimes they're master manipulators. They don't think that they have the problem, and they're able to effectively turn their issue into like a we issue, right? And so a lot of therapists, it's easy for them to get duped by this, because on the surface, yes, if you had two reasonable, rational people who were both working towards some sort of solution in their relationship, which is kind of what a therapist would probably most likely think if you've got a couple coming into couples counseling, right? That they really want to be seeking a solution. That's not the case with a lot of narcissists and sociopaths, right? So they're there to basically put on this performance where they're the good guy and that you're the one with the issue. And I've seen this time and time and time and time and time again. And it's really easy for therapists to be triangulated like that, and for them to be turned against the victim. And so now the victim's got this like double dose of crazy making going on, because it's sort of like, well, now I must really be the problem, because now this therapist is pointing out all of these things I need to work on, and my ex is pointing out all of these things I need to work on, and what is so wrong with me? Like, it's just it's crazy making. But it's verbally abusive, emotionally abusive behavior is not your fault. There's nothing that any of us can do to prevent that. Abusive people are responsible for their behavior, and it's not okay for them to treat people the way that they treat people. So yes, they are not grounded in reality. And so it's just, if you're going to go through counseling or something, I would call the therapist ahead of time, ask them if they're familiar with narcissists or kind of cluster B personality disorders. And if they're, or you could just say manipulative people, and then just say, this is what I think my wife or my husband is. And, you know, I'm not comfortable coming in there maybe as a couple, but I want them to come see you. I'm just trying to give you a heads up. And just so they can be kind of like screening for that and potentially ruling it out. But here's what I don't like about therapy. My main beef with therapy, especially when it comes to abusive relationships, is I don't like any situation where a person turns their power and control over to another person. And that's the downside of therapy. So if you have a therapist who doesn't pick up on the signs of abuse, and there's lots of them out there that don't, then if you need to have enough comfort and enough confidence and faith in your ability to know that there's a problem, to not be rattled by somebody else. So if a therapist says, well, I don't think there's a problem here, they're not a narcissist, or they're not emotionally abusive, for their perception of your reality to not necessarily impact your reality. So that's my concern, is that I think a lot of people, they stay in therapy for 10 years and they're not even working on the real issue, which is their partner is highly manipulative and has very problematic behavior, and the therapist isn't seeing it. And now everybody's got the victim working on themselves, and they're this whole nonsense dance with trying to work on this relationship when it's not a relationship, it's a manipulationship, and those are two very, very different things. So I encourage you to trust your own judgment with things. If something's a problem to you, then it's a problem. And it doesn't matter if that your partner is a narcissist or a sociopath or whatever name you want to call them, but it's important that you're able to spot the signs of problematic behavior. And so this is another, this is why I recommend that book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship, because she really goes into detail about all of the different signs, things that most people wouldn't associate with being, abusive behavior, like the silent treatment, or not answering a question, or subtle devaluing, kind of the implied meaning. So they might not even say anything. It's just kind of that implication that you're not good enough, or that you're doing things wrong, or sarcasm, or things that are, insults that are supposed to be funny, quote unquote funny, or it's basically anything that's verbal abuse. Emotional abuse is any type of behavior that serves to diminish or minimize or devalue another person. So it's not always screaming and yelling and name calling. It's a whole bunch of other things as well. So oops, I just lost the chat. Hold on a second here. Okay, Traveling Wolf says, Dana, what are some good tips on filling my own buckets instead of running off and finding another damn narc? So I think first identifying which buckets that you need filled. And I think for most people, it tends to be that their bucket of significance, which tends to include, feeling important and loved, and, affection, and these kinds of things. So, working with animals, it can be great. Working, if you're religious or spiritual, going to church, going to, kind of whatever place of worship you go to, associating with friends, making sure that you're getting, being touched, like human touch. So whether or not, you're getting hugs from friends, or you can, meetup.com is fantastic. It's a fantastic way to meet people. I just went to a really neat thing last week. It was like a Reiki healing session at this local spirituality center. Really, really nice. And so, doing those kinds of things, and meeting more kind of like-minded people, and it doesn't take a whole lot to actually fill up those buckets, which is interesting. But, it's important to kind of get them filled as much as possible. because it's it's when they're not filled that's when we get that attitude of scarcity, and then we start, you know, thinking that this person that we've met online is a lot better or a lot more right for us than they really are. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Okay, Emily asks, my ex narcissist stalked and harassed me for a year and a half after I left him. Have you heard of this happening to anyone else? Yes, this happens quite a bit. So, highly manipulative people, abusive people in general, they're driven by power and control. And they don't often let up on those power and control, right? That because that's what they're driven to get over another person, over a situation. And they, you know, other words to describe them might be like very persistent, or you know, they have a hard time letting go. And that's kind of stalking behavior plays a part of it because they're trying to maintain power and control over you and over the situation. And depending on how severe the stalking is and how much of a danger, you know, you how much danger you feel that you really are in, you know, I would definitely tell people, you know, err on the side of caution. Go with your gut instinct. If you feel that you need to get out of there, if you need to move, if you need to do whatever you need to do to stay safe and sane, then definitely do it. But a lot of them will are persistent, and do the stalking and the harassing and all of that. Sometimes a restraining order works. Sometimes it makes things worse. It just kind of depends on your situation, and it just depend you and you know your situation best. So just again, kind of going with your gut, you know, just anticipating their behavior as much as possible. So driving, taking different ways to work, being very aware of your surroundings, you know, keeping some sort of like mace or something on you at all times, knowing how to use your mace before you actually are in a position to have to use it. Because a lot, just kind of FYI, a lot of these mace containers, they're not user friendly. So it's because they don't want you to accidentally mace yourself. So I would encourage you go outside and spray your mace so you know, does it come out as a little tiny stream, does it come out as an aerosol spray, how much of a spray, how far out does it reach, how do you get the cover off of it, how do you have to flip anything, do you have to hold it, you know, like you just need to know what you have before you are actually in a position to have to use it, because you don't want that to be like you know, a false sense of comfort. But yes, they do tend to, you know, the stalking and the harassment does tend to end once they've moved on and they've attached themselves to a new person. But it can be very, very scary. And sometimes they'll continue to do this hoovering, and they'll continue to stalk and harass even if they are with a new partner, because in their mind, whatever they want is whatever they want. And it doesn't matter if they've remarried, it doesn't matter. Like in their mind that, you know, we will always belong to them. And they're not all like that, but some of them are, and it's a really it can be really, really scary. So yeah, very, very scary stuff. Oh, let's see. Okay. Doug says, Dear Dana, when a woman goes to a meetup group, that is wonderful, but when a man goes, he is a perv and creepy. Sorry, but gender bias. I don't know if I guess it depends on the guy. I mean, there's lots of guys that go to the meetup groups that I go to, and I mean, yeah, there's been a few that I've thought were a little creepy, but maybe I'm talking maybe like three out of, you know, probably 100 men that I've come across. So nothing, you know, but there's been women in the meetup groups too that I thought they weren't. I don't know if they thought they were perverted, but that I thought they were a little off. So, you know, I think you just have to kind of get out there to the best of your ability, and you know, just do try to have fun is kind of what it boils down to. Just trying to have fun and meeting new people, and going without a lot of expectation. And you have to sometimes do try different meetup groups. I mean, some of them, like I've gone there and they haven't clicked with me at all. You know, I just kind of thought this is not my people. This is not my idea of fun. Not that they were bad or wrong. It's just we just didn't click. You know, so I keep going to different meetups but I've met quite a few. Well, not quite. I mean, like I've met a handful of people through meetup groups that I really enjoy their company, and some of them are guys, and they're you know really nice men. So, Hot Potato asks, has anyone tried creating a vision board like the one Dana had in one of her streams? I just started mine today. I What did you put on your vision board? I would be curious. That's exciting. And it is. It's so fun. If you guys haven't ever done one, I highly recommend it. It's interesting to kind of think about what you would want in a new life and what those images would look like. Yeah. Elise says they're talking about Reiki and how I should learn Reiki so I can heal people. And Elise says, Adrian, you can start a new business, work on that Reiki, and help people recovering from narc relationships. I agree. I think that would be a really interesting thing. So it was so in this Reiki healing thing that I went to. Gosh, it was so nice that they had 5 different Reiki people there. It was donation based, and it was just it was a very small group of people, and again, like my kind of people. So I'm really glad that I just kind of stumbled across this event. Everybody was super nice and very much into different types of spirituality, and really great conversation. And they went around and did these Reiki healings. And so after mine, that was it that night? I think it was that night. No, it was the next night. The next night I had this terrible nightmare. When I was younger, when I was in high school, I had this reoccurring nightmare with Freddy Krueger. And I had gone to a dream interpretation class. I was like 16 at the time. I'd gone to a dream interpretation class, and the teacher there had said that Freddy most likely represented my fears and that I needed to face my fears. And so, for me to try to slow my dream down to the point where I was like lucid dreaming, where you're more in control of your dream, and to confront Freddy Krueger. So I did. This was, a long time ago. And I noticed it was weird. So in my dream the other night, I have not dreamt about Freddy Krueger in like 20 something years. And dreamt about him that night. It was a really vivid dream. It was absolutely awful. It was just so scary. And so that was the theme of the whole Reiki healing, was kind of me releasing these fears, me releasing these anxieties and these insecurities. And to have that dream and being able to confront Freddy again in my dream, it was so creepy. It was so like one part of my dream, I turned around and looked at him, and I told him, I said, I'm not afraid of you. And he took his claws and he like went across my face, and I like tried to hold my ground. And he said, if you're not afraid of me, then why did you flinch? And I knew that I had to stay strong, because if he sensed fear in me, then then he could really hurt me, right? Because that was the whole premise behind those whole Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And so I just looked at him again, and I said, you know what? I wish you light and love. And then he just kind of like backed away and disappeared. It was a really powerful dream. But yeah, so interesting. Like, and I've had a lot more peace in my life after that whole Reiki healing. So I think there's a lot to it. So that was a like, whole side story there. It would be interesting to study Reiki. I know a little bit about kind of what it's based on, but I don't know it in depth. BBR says, yes, I joined Massage Envy because you do need that touch for an hour or so every month. I get that human touch, which does make a difference. And then I have the church people, of course. And when you go to church, everyone hugs you and shakes your hand, that kind of thing. So, yes, I think it's very important. And then if a person is not, if you're not, if you don't identify with any particular faith, and you're still interested in kind of that spiritual community, most communities have Unitarian churches, which are non-denominational. There's a universal Unitarian church in my area where atheists go there, and so it's just people that are just wanting to celebrate love, basically. And so that can be a really good place to go out and meet generally a bunch of nice people that are there for good intentions. And, it takes a little trial and error trying to kind of find your crowd, but, um, you know, it does help. And so, all of you guys, Doug, especially you, are a super nice guy. You've got a lot going for you and you're very, very likable. It's just finding the people that respect you and that see in you what we see in you. You know? So, Adrienne says, I figured out how to, oh, good. She says, I figured out how to get on this thing. I just left my bad situation after discovering his horrific double life. After discovering it, I stuck through it the last 6 months without letting him know what I discovered about him. I am not having very graphic nightmare. Wait, I am not having very graphic nightmares. Any advice on how to control night terrors? Oh, I'm guessing you meant to say that you are having very graphic nightmares. The night terrors is fairly normal, and so they tend to pass with time. And I would say just getting out those feelings as much as possible through like journaling, through talking to yourself, allowing yourself to feel those feelings. Because here's the thing with feelings is there's no such thing as a negative emotion. I know that sounds crazy, right? But it's true because we have pleasant emotions and we have unpleasant emotions, but none of them are negative. They're not bad. And so all of our feelings, all of our emotions are there for a reason. They're there to kind of, because they have a message for us. And so if we're having these intense emotional feelings, it's generally either saying, stay away, don't do this again, or feelings of this is kind of, different feelings that you're missing, right? So if we wake up and we're feeling really incredibly sad or just, I used to wake up screaming or crying a lot after this happened with me. It was very, very intense, very traumatic. And I think that's probably pretty normal. Just getting a mantra, telling yourself over and over and over again, kind of whatever you think would soothe you the best. So maybe your mantra is, you know what? I am loved and I am loving. And you might have a lot of resistance to saying something like that right now. But I think just knowing that, you are loved. There's probably at least one other person on this planet that does value you as a human being. So knowing that you are loved and that you are loving, that you don't have to be in an intimate partner relationship in order to be loving, right? Like you can be loving to friends, you can be loving to total strangers. And I think just knowing that you can kind of releasing that tightness in your chest having to do with this relationship and this that intense feeling, and just breathing, and just kind of feeling those feelings and then letting them go can be really, really powerful as well. Yes, Adrienne says, Adrienne, don't fight them, understand them, and then let them go. So Yes, Debbie says, I yell in the middle of the night in fear. And so a lot of it, it's yes, Elise says, the night terrors must be awful. I know that the romantic dreams are bad too. I had those and would miss them in the morning, but those dreams weren't realistic, of course. They were my wish. Yes, that's exactly, you know, I think a lot of us tend to have either one or the other, like the romantic dreams where we're missing them, or the feeling of fear and terror. And a lot of it's just this is just our brain trying to process what we went through, and it does pass. And then just kind of doing whatever you need to do to self soothe and just being good to yourself during all that. Peace Pom Pom says, I feel a bit embarrassed sharing this. Today is my birthday. All of the hard work has delivered me the brightest new life. I feel so much love and joy. So that's awesome. Why are you embarrassed about that? She says, I feel so much love and joy from myself and from my life. I'm grateful for being here with you, Dana, and with the rest of you very special people. So thank you. That's awesome. Happy birthday. Like, yay. Yay you. I love that. And I love your attitude, and I love that you're feeling so much love and joy for yourself and for your life. Because it is. I mean, this chapter, we talked about earlier, just because you went through something that was so incredibly painful and something that was so incredibly traumatic, this doesn't have to be the end, right? Like, you can decide, okay, I'm going to write this next new amazing chapter of my life, and it's going to be the best one yet. And you decide what you want to put in there, and like what you want to fill up that next chapter with. And yeah. So, and I think you'll find too that most people, I think, that have been through, that tend to have a lot of inner peace in their life, that tend to have wisdom at all. They've gone through rough times. So there's this whole saying out there, right? That like good judgment comes from bad judgment. And so it's hard because when we're going through the bad judgment phase where we get tangled up with all of these people, and of course, this is not that this is any of our faults. It's, when you're manipulated by somebody who presents really well, then that's their fault. That's their behavior, not ours. But when we learn the lessons, when we're learning the lessons of problematic people, when we're learning healthy boundaries, when we're learning all of this, there's that healing time that happens, right? And then we have to go through all of that in order to have really good judgment, in order to have really good insight, in order to have really good boundaries and good self-esteem. So sometimes it takes a lot of pain for us to kind of start doing things differently. And that's kind of one of the mini gifts in all of this. So, let's see. True Love says, my mantra is that if I keep staying in cognitive dissonance about my ex, that I will never get the life I want. I'll never receive the reciprocated selfless love I need from him. Yes. Yes. That's very true. And so the cognitive dissonance, it really helps to cut through that fog of cognitive dissonance if we can work on filling up our buckets to the best of our abilities. And like I said, sometimes it doesn't really take that much to kind of get us to a good place. I mean, doing things like this, interacting with people online, interacting, again, with children or with pets, or volunteering is a great way to fill up some empty buckets. You can volunteer in places that you would really want to volunteer in. It doesn't have to be, picking up trash in the street. I mean, you can go do fun things and volunteer at fun places. Getting out there and just meeting different people. Very, very therapeutic. So, yes, BBR says, we're talking about nightmares. She said, this is why I don't watch scary movies. I never watched it either. Either of the Friday the 13th movies. I'm glad I didn't. Yes, I don't watch scary movies either. And I saw Nightmare on Elm Street at a birthday party for a kid, and we were probably in fourth or fifth grade. And my parents were so upset that I watched that movie because I have always been, I just have never been able to handle scary movies at all. Even like when I was a kid, my dad and my brother really liked to watch the old black and white, like Bela Lugosi and like Dracula and Frankenstein and things like that. And I would get so scared. And those aren't even really scary, but I get scared and I stay scared. So I can't do, I don't even have it. I don't have a TV. So I'm to the point now where I don't like anything that's disturbing, really. So news, Law and Order, like any type of show that is, a drama where there's pain and suffering. I don't like it. That's nice. Martine says, I had a coffee date with an old female friend today. It was so awesome to see her. We didn't see each other for 3 years and we connected like it was yesterday. I miss friends like that. Yes, I do too. I moved to Michigan about 3 years ago, and it's just, I miss having old friends. I have good friends all over the United States because I've moved a lot, but you get busy and you grow apart, and we just don't talk that much anymore, and it's hard. It's hard. I think it can be harder to make friends the older you are. But it's important, and it's something I'm trying to get better with, like getting out there and really getting connected with people and all that. So birthdays. Oh, we have Debbie M and Hot Potato. Adrian Rose says, I do listen to music to calm my mornings on my way to work. And I listen to audiobooks too. It's hard to fit things I'd like to do in my work schedule, but I try to take any minute I can for myself. I haven't been able to watch news or watch certain TV either. Yes, I agree. So really paying attention to kind of what you're feeding your brain in your environment is really important. And you know, there's so many great videos on YouTube for like relaxation, for even Reiki, and guided imagery, and a lot of that. So for those of you guys that are having, you're struggling with having night terrors and these kinds of things, to go look on YouTube, watch some of these guided imagery videos, just allowing yourself to relax, reminding yourself that you are safe, reminding yourself that to be here in the moment, does work wonders. I'm sure that there's also some, real 15-minute type meditation videos that will help a person get centered throughout the day. So, oh, and Martin says his birthday is next week. That is exciting. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. So, gratitude. That's another thing. I still do that often. Um, Gratitude. So it's weird. The brain can only feel one feeling at a time. And so if you're, hung up in, if your brain is hung up on anger or on fear or sadness or kind of whatever, to take a time out, take 3 to 5 minutes and start finding every single thing that you can to be grateful for. And I'm talking every single thing. So, in whatever your however you want to do it. If you want to say, thank you God, thank you, or thank you source, thank you, or thank you universe, thank you, whatever you're comfortable with. Thank you God, thank you so much for these plants in my living room. They just bring me so much joy. I really enjoy watering them. I enjoy singing to them. I enjoy taking care of them. I enjoy their colors and their leaves, and I appreciate the oxygen that they give me. Thank you, God. Thank you. I am really grateful that, I have this YouTube channel. It really brings me a lot of joy to have this. Or thank you, God. Thank you that for my bed. My bed is so comfortable. Like I'm just, that is such a treat. Like to climb into bed and just be like, like I just, and you just kind of do like a little snow angel thing in your bed. So whatever you're thinking about, like, thank you, God, thank you for, my brother, or I have a car. I'm very thankful and grateful that I have a car, or that I have a whole box full of tea that I really like. All of these things, gratitude helps to really slow our brain down and just be in the moment. And I think you'll find that those feelings of fear, those feelings of any uncomfortable feeling that you're having, it just slows that momentum down. It's really a huge thing. Oh, I like that. Martine says what also helps him is to say, everything is moving according to plan. It's all going exactly as it should. All is fine in my life. I love that. I love that. Interesting. Roxanne asks, do you think a narcissist could pretend to stalk himself for attention, even if the sum of the attention is not edifying him? Oh, totally, completely. Yeah, they lie. They lie about everything. They will. Yeah, I don't put anything past them. I could see them saying that they're getting text messages from somebody, that somebody's driving past their house. You know, yeah, all kinds of stuff. So somebody asked me about my job. What do I do as a psychiatric nurse? Well, and keep in mind all psychiatric nurses do different things, but in my job, I work in a clinic. We work with people that are chronically mentally ill, and so the clinic I work in is more of like a public health type place. So we work with a lot of people that are Medicaid, Medicare, or homeless. And, all of my patients have at least a mental illness, generally schizophrenia. But we have a few that are bipolar. We have a lot that are personality disordered. So we do kind of what we can to keep these people as stable and as high of a quality of life as possible. So we do a lot of medications, med setups, and kind of checking on them, and those kinds of things. So Cece, oh, hi, Cece's Revenge is here. She says, I found out in quick fashion that a new person in my life was a narcissist, and I quickly got rid of that person in a matter of days. I was love bombed almost immediately. It was crazy, and this person is gone. Bye bye. So, yeah, I mean, it's great once we can start spotting problematic behavior, it's like once you see it, and it's so great because you just don't get tangled up in it as easily anymore. It's like you kind of learn to like level up. So it's really exciting. So yay you, that's a huge victory, you know. And I think, it can be a little bit discouraging because the healthier you get, the more you're going to realize that you're going to have to look a little bit harder to find healthy people kind of where you are. So you're going to be weeding out you're going to be weeding out people, like a lot of them. And to not get discouraged by that, and to not internalize that, and not think to yourself, oh no, this is, you know, I'm still attracting all the wrong people. It's not so much about what you're attracting into your life. It's kind of how long you let that stuff stay in there. Because healthy people get, narcissists and problematic people are out there, and they can come into anybody's life. And so it's healthy people have good boundaries and good self-esteem. So when they start acting squirrely or they start doing that love bombing, a healthy person's like, no, no, no. Like, I don't have time for this, and this is a bunch of nonsense. And that, they see it for what it is and they get out of there quickly. But they still encounter it. You know, they just don't get tangled up in it as quick, or they don't stay in it as long as we did, right? But we don't stay in it that long anymore. So we're learning. So that's good. Let's see. Scrolling down. This is so much easier. I have a little mouse thing, computer mouse with me this week, and it's what I should have had all along because it really makes a huge difference. Let's see. Trying to cope is here. S9 Arena is here. I like that. Elise says, yes, Adrienne, I love journaling. Interesting that my intuition told me to not journal once he moved in. I didn't trust him. Never had that before when I was married. Interesting. Our intuition is powerful stuff. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons in all of this is just learning to trust our judgment, learning to trust ourselves, learning to go with our intuition is huge. Yes. Okay. So Zero asks, looking back, I think as a teen, I love bombed, but for the codependent reasons, not the narcissist reasons. That need for closeness and having that storybook romance. I think a lot of codependent people do. And, again, it's that narcissists and codependent people, we all have empty buckets, right? So we all have buckets because we're human. Every human being is born with those three buckets. I fully believe this. And so narcissists go about filling that bucket a certain way, and then codependent people tend to go about filling that same bucket, but a different way. So narcissists get those buckets filled by taking, codependent people get it filled often by giving. And so some of the behaviors are similar, how we go about it. So with, codependent people do the love bombing too, because it's that whirlwind romance and it feels so good, and we see it in the movies, and we just want so much to be loved and loving, and we're in this relationship, and it's intoxicating. And I think for narcissists and other types of problematic people, it's the same. It starts off very similar for them, because that same bucket is low for them, but they have just this unfortunate bend in their personality to where it's all about them. And so, when they encounter that stress of a relationship, the stress of life, kind of conflict, whatever, it's just this awful side of them comes out. But yeah, so a lot of codependent people do some of this red flag stuff too. Interesting. Yeah, Venus says, "Hi everyone. I just wanted I just wanted to share some fun news. My ex narcissist that cheated on me while I was pregnant just got cheated on by the same girl he cheated on me with. I still don't think he will understand." Yeah, he probably won't. And he's probably been cheating on her too. So, that's the thing. And I don't know if she knew that you were pregnant when he was cheating and all that. But, if a person is cheating on their partner, like they're going to cheat. If they're cheating, they're going to probably cheat on you too. And so this new girl is, it's the same. It's just, it's really hard for something good to come. It's really hard for like good, solid, character in a situation to come from a bunch of like dysfunction and deceit. Like it just doesn't happen that way, you know? So let me scroll up and see some more questions. Peace Pom Pom says, I'm trying to cope. Are you reading this month's book for book club, the You Can Heal Your Life? I highly recommend it. Very gentle, but powerfully effective. I'm not sure if that question was directed at anybody in particular or if it was directed at me, but I loved that book. And I'd mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it before in the last live stream. Yes, I did. I did because Doug got the book and had was talking about it. So, it's. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling up and the screen is moving around. The book You Can Heal Your Life. What is so funny about that is when it was first recommended to me about, you know, 6 or so years ago after my relationship with Jack ended, I I was so excited about the book and I got it off of Amazon and I went to go read it and I didn't like it at all. And it did not resonate with me at all. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense and it was so weird. I picked it up this time around and it was like finding the missing piece of my life. I mean, it was just so profound and I just loved that book. Here's what's interesting about this book. So I've had a couple different people mention this to me. They're having issues with the book. And I had a gal in one of the support groups today had mentioned, she said, she's like, I can't look at myself in the mirror and do these affirmations. It makes me really uncomfortable. And it feels like I'm lying to myself. And she says, it's almost like I don't want to heal. And so she was surprised by her reaction to the book. And so I could see that. I could see that, I'm several years out from all of my stuff, but I could see how a person could feel that way. Especially if they're fresh out, they're not ready necessarily to release anger and release resentment, or to maybe even do the affirmations. And so if that describes kind of what any of you guys are going through with this book, I would strongly encourage you to just think about starting with what you're comfortable with in the book. So you're probably going to come across parts of the book that, maybe resonate with you more so than other parts of the book. And that's okay. And so if you really feel like you want to do affirmations, but you don't want to do all of the affirmations, or if you're not okay with doing some of the exercises, then that's okay. You can come back to that. You can do that at another time. You can do it a couple years later. Just doing kind of what you feel is going to be healing for you at this time, because I think healing really does tend to come on in waves. And so kind of what you're needing right now is going to be very different than what you might need next week or even next month or next year. And this is a continual evolution. And so this book, You Can Heal Your Life, I found it to be a really interesting read. There's a ton of stuff in there. There's a ton of really great information in there. And I think probably most of us are going to have to go through it a couple times. But everybody that I've talked to, except, like I said, there's been a couple of people that have been really hung up on stuff and they've only gotten about 3 pages in and they don't even know how to handle this. A lot of the other people have found a tremendous amount of healing and kind of insight from reading the first chapter or so of the book. So maybe we should do Martine, I am talking about Louise Hay. Maybe we should do a special live stream that's just on that book. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you want to do a special live stream? Okay, so people are talking here about, this is very off topic, but very valid, all the same. If the narcissists were molested or sexually abused when they were children, or kind of what's up with that. Again, generally, kind of one of the theories is that narcissists tend to come from trauma. A lot of them do. It doesn't make their behavior okay, right? But at the same time, I've known a lot of narcissists that haven't come from a lot of trauma. So it's, I don't even think it's, I think it's just once a person can figure out that they can really effectively manipulate another person, and if they just kind of don't, if they're not really that empathetic to begin with, they just do whatever they want to do because they can. And I think a lot of our society is kind of going in that direction where it's just this kind of, it's all about me, kind of this me focused society that we're living in. You know, not to say that they're people are like abusive narcissists necessarily, but there's definitely like this large component of narcissism in our society. Overcoming understanding is making fun of my shoulder showing. Yes, well, you know. Oh, really? Elise says Louise has a movie on the book, which is very good. I suggest watching it. I did not know that. That is really interesting. She has a YouTube channel. It's just Louise Hay, and she has a ton of affirmations on it. She has a lot of great videos, a lot of her old, kind of way back when, like her old, audio tapes and stuff, cassette tapes, they've made into YouTube videos. So it's a great free way to absorb her content. I listen to a lot of the videos when I'm getting ready for work in the morning, and or if I'm relaxing at night, um, you know those kinds of things. So um, yes, Lundy Bancroft. Some Pardoned Sin said I found insight with Lundy Bancroft, and then Dana's group was a bomb of info. Yes, I forget. I think we read one of her books in our book club, and I don't remember which one, but she is a fantastic writer, very familiar with all different types of abuse. And I, the book club book that I'm thinking about doing for, um, what is this month? March, April. The book that I'm thinking about doing for April is part of the series of oh shoot, she's the gal Patricia Evans. She did the verbally abusive relationship, the book that we read a few months ago, which I highly recommend. I just think it's so fantastic. She did a follow up book to that. It's called something like well, she has one called Controlling People that I want to read. And then the book that I just started today was on, I think it was called On Healing from a Verbally Abusive Relationship. So I'm going to get a little bit more further into that one. But I think that might be the book club book for April, because I really like her style. And yes, okay, Elise is saying too, I recently read all of Patricia Evans' books. They are excellent. I absolutely agree. She just knows her stuff. There's a few things in there that I'm not a huge fan of. But I think overall she's really good. My main beef with a lot of her stuff is, so she's about confronting abusive people and saying things like, can you repeat that, or let me get my video camera and video you saying that. And I think that can be really helpful if you're dealing with a more mild abusive person. If you're dealing with like a really abusive person, I think that challenging them like that can get somebody killed. And I have a problem with. So I wish she would have put that more in context of, only do this if you really feel that this is wise to do and that you're not putting yourself in harm's way. I think that she needed to spell that out a little bit more. But if a person, if they, it just depends. Like, everybody's situation is different, and Everybody knows their situation the best, but yes, by and large, I really, really love all of her books and her writing. Oh, she does. I hadn't even thought to check. Martine says Patricia Evans has many. I have the hiccups. Excuse me. Has many videos on YouTube too. That is awesome. I'll have to look that up. S9 says, "Hey, does anyone here have CPTSD?" So I think a lot of people do. Um, CPTSD stands for complex post traumatic stress disorder. And it's so you have PTSD that tends to be more of like a one-time situational thing. So if a person's at like war, they would have more like PTSD. So and it's more cause and effect. So if they hear a loud noise, they might drop to the ground. If they have certain smells, if they're triggered in very specific ways relating to that event, they're going to have, flashbacks and night terrors and the same kinds of symptoms. It's going to be related to that. The CPTSD has to do with abuse. And so abuse victims suffer from this, but it tends to go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed because a lot of people, doctors included, tend to think that when people think of PTSD, they think of more of wartime things or extremely abusive relationships. But it's not. It's any type of, intensely emotionally abusive situation can cause this in a person. And so it does tend to go away. I think I read once on average, it lasts about, depending on the severity and the duration of what you went through, it can last about 18 months. And really, it's the brain's way of trying to keep you safe. So I know it might kind of feel like your brain is turning on you, right? So it's sort of like, why am I having all of these reactions to things? Why do I feel paranoid? Why don't I trust people? Why don't I want to leave my house? Why am I having anxiety? Why am I depressed? Why am I having night terrors? Why can't I function? And it's your brain trying to process everything that happened to you in order to keep you safe. And because it's not able to effectively process kind of what's going on, especially because a lot of people, when they get out of an abusive relationship, they're still not fully sure what happened. And so that's where there's a lot of like fragmented pieces of puzzle pieces to figure out. And so the brain gets hung up on that. And so it's sort of like, I don't really know what happened here. So I'm just going to do my best to keep my person safe. And so I'm just going to say, just don't trust anybody and just stay inside the house. So that's kind of the messages, from the brain. But it does tend to pass. And, just doing what you can do and to just be kind and good to yourself is a good start. Jaime says, I have a question. Do narcissists ever admit that they were cheating or lying if you confront them? I've heard that they just won't ever do this regardless if you show them the evidence. They generally don't. But see, okay, here's the thing, because they're highly manipulative. So they tell the truth, or some version of the truth whenever they want. They might tell you part of the truth. I mean, I think, but there's always a reason for everything that they do, and it's never really an honest, sincere reason. There's always a hidden agenda there. So, more likely than not, if they're gonna tell the truth about, like, the quote unquote truth about something, it's generally after their partners had to pull it out of them, because narcissists tend to only admit to the bare minimum. So like if you've got pictures, right, they might say, well, okay, but it was that one time, and then they're going to blame it, right? Then they're going to spin it around and be like, well, yeah, I slept with that guy or that girl one time, but it was because you were working a lot, or you were never home, or we were never having sex, or there's always an excuse, or she threw herself at me, or I was drunk, or it's just there's no accountability. And so then of course, the more you do find out, then they'll admit to like that next level, but they don't like being challenged, they don't like being confronted, they don't feel like that they owe anybody the truth. Like that they just feel like I told you what happened, so you just need to deal with it. Like there's no closure there. There's no just it's frustrating. So point is, sometimes they'll tell you the truth, but it's not because they're coming clean and telling you the truth. They're telling you the truth to manipulate you further down the line. Benjamin mentions, excuse me, Benjamin, oh, where did it go? He'd mentioned Alan Watts. I have listened to his channel before. It is interesting. It is an interesting channel. What did you like about it? S9 says, my husband used to corner me and berate me all of the time. They do that. And this book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship, and again, my notes on this book are on my website under it's under my support group, and then there's another tab in there called book club notes. I take a lot of notes when I do read these book club books, so we can go back and we can reference them and everything. But that book was fantastic. I highly recommend it, and it mentions all of the different types of verbal and really emotional abuse. So it's very validating. It's very validating. I was talking to a friend today because I started reading this other book that she's written, and I had told my friend, I said, it's just like the waves of clarity just keep coming, and I had been in therapy for a like on and off for a long, long time, but I never put two and two together that kind of what I'd experienced in my childhood was really problematic. Like I never had that validation. And in reading this book, it was sort of like I wanted to cry. I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of what I experienced. Like this is problematic stuff. And it's once you can see, it's like you just kind of getting somebody else to spell out, this is what abusive behavior is like. It's not all hitting and screaming. It's not all punching and leaving bruises. It's not name calling. That's part of it, but that's not all of it. There's a lot of other abusive behavior that can go on that has nothing to do with that. And so it was like, oh, oh, okay, now everything makes a lot more sense, because that's it makes a lot more sense. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, Elise says, my ex-narcissist, it's been about 10-12 weeks, used to say, I take 100% responsibility for the unhappiness in our relationship. Where did that come from? He was a covert narc abuser. So again, like they'll have, I don't know. They do. Steve did a lot of that. So I hear you on that. And then it kind of makes it's just an added level of crazy making. But the thing is, they don't take 100% responsibility. They're just giving more lip service to things, generally. And because if they did take 100% responsibility, then they would have changed a lot earlier on. So it's almost a weird kind of way for them to all of a sudden have this moment of clarity where they fully understand and they're accountable and responsible for their behavior. They're so sorry they caused us so much pain. It's sort of like their way of leaving, trying to play the victim of themselves, and for us to feel sorry for them and for us to forgive them. So it's, I wouldn't get into that. I wouldn't buy it. But again, your situation, The best. Yes, actions, not words. Um, so, oh, I scrolling and then I lose the chat. Um, Let me scroll up here. Roxanne says, my 14-year-old daughter, Rachel, is watching you right now. Her father is a narcissist. What could you say to her about him using her to hurt me and my relationship with her? So that's a really great question. And hi, Rachel. So I'm glad you're on. And what would I say? I would say, that your dad's behavior is not a reflection of you or of your mom. It's a reflection of him. And so you know, if he says hurtful things, if he does hurtful things, it's because there's stuff going on inside of him. And so it's really important that you realize that if he does say hurtful things, things that make you feel like it's like an attack on your self-esteem or your self-worth or your mom's self-esteem or your mom's self-worth, to realize that those things aren't true. That's his perception of things, and that's incredibly hurtful. And it's not okay, right? Like, it's not okay for other people to talk to other people that way. And for you, I guess, to just kind of to realize that it's not okay for him to talk to anybody like that, just like it's not okay for us to talk to people like that too, right? And for your relationship, and so it's really common when you have parents, especially if they're divorced, for them to there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of tension, and hurtful things are often said, and one parent might say things about the other parent. This is really common, and then the children get stuck in the middle. And I if that's kind of where you are, I know that's where I was when I was your age. My parents split up when I was 13, and it was really tough. So you know realizing that it's okay, like, you can have a relationship with your mom and you can have a relationship with your dad, and just kind of, they might say, hopefully your mom's not doing it, but if your dad is saying hurtful things to you about your mom, to realize that he might be saying those things because he's hurt and because he's angry, and to not take everything that hurt and angry people say for as truth and as for face value. And so, you're getting to the age where it's okay for you to have your own type of relationship with your mom and your own type of relationship with your dad, and for you to make up your own mind. That's a good thing, because you're 14, you're old enough, you can make your own decisions, you can form your own opinions about things, and you don't need to take sides. And I know that it's hard because my father's a narcissist, and he's got a lot of issues as well. So it's you know I'm sorry, I don't know where I was really going with that. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to kind of, and there's different degrees of narcissism. So I don't know how long you've been on the chat tonight and how much you've heard, but when you're dealing with people that are, so like with my dad, for example, I just consider he's not necessarily a bad guy. He's just very emotionally unavailable. And when we were kids, he yelled a lot. And so there were a lot of things that he did that were really hurtful. And it's not okay that he was like that. And he said a lot of things about our mom to us. And, it was, and so you have to just kind of make up your own mind I guess is what I'm saying, and to not necessarily take another person's opinion of you or your mom or other people for face value. So I hope that that helps. And Roxanne, seeing too, if there's support groups out there for kids Rachel's age, a lot of places, have either free or very low cost support groups for, kids whose parents are going through a divorce and, those kinds of things. Because it can help. It can help if she's open to something like that. So, somebody, thanks, Elise. Elise says, I'm sorry that happened to you, Dana. So here's the thing. I think a lot of us that tend to get tangled up in these kinds of relationships, it's, it's because oftentimes if we're raised in a home where we've had a lot of this kind of stuff going on, then when we get into relation, it's kind of, oftentimes it's not a coincidence. So I think a lot of us have come from trauma of some kind in our childhood, and then we tend to date trauma, right? We find ourselves in this like repeating pattern of problematic relationships, and a lot of it's just kind of taking a step back. And none of us are perfect, and I think there's that saying that we're all victims of victims. But by and large, emotional health kind of stuff is not taught, right? So we all have to unfortunately figure out a lot of this stuff the hard way. Um, you know, um, so it's just taking time out to examine kind of what are our patterns as far as relationships go, and friendships and jobs and self-esteem, and getting really curious about our own life and figuring out why are we doing what we're doing, and what kind of repeating patterns are there. So, and not all victims of abuse are from abusive homes. So my grandmother was married to a narcissist, and he was a Baptist preacher. And she grew up in a very kind, from what I understand, to be a very kind and very loving home, very religious home. And so she was very sheltered. She just did not see him coming at all. She just took everything she was very naive and a very just solid, good person. And she just took everything for face value. And his abusive behavior was really had a lot to do with like cheating, and there was verbal and emotional I mean, he blamed her for his cheating, which is that's it messes with your mind, right? And she just believed everything that he said. So if he said, well, I'm cheating on you because you didn't have dinner ready and you're not a good wife and this, that, and the other, then she would try to be a better wife. And of course, this doesn't work when you're with an abusive or manipulative person, right? Because our behavior can't change somebody else's behavior. It doesn't work that way. And so she just, even though she came from a good home, she just, she was under the impression that, well, if you got married, you stayed married, especially in that generation, and that you worked through things. And so she just, being married to a covert narcissist who kept giving all of this lip service to that he would change and things could get better, and if she could just change these things about her, then it could change his behavior. And it just she just didn't know what she walked into. I'm not even sure if she ever fully understood like what she went through with that. So it's not always people that are involved in trauma go through stuff like this. So, yeah, Lauren says it's so cruel to manipulate like that. It really is. It's just ridiculous. I just don't, and for like for my grandfather to here he is supposedly, a man of God, and he's a church leader, and he's ministering to people, and he's just destroying lives right and left, and there's no accountability, there's no responsibility, there's no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It's just like jaw dropping. How did he go through life? I have no idea. Just total, just awful human being. Awful, terrible. Traveling Wolf says, so how does one heal the self doubt and the cognitive dissonance? So I think the self doubt, well, I guess let me get clarity on that. What do you mean by self doubt? Do you mean whether or not you should stay or go, or do you mean the self doubt after you leave and you're kind of wondering like, who was the problem here? Was it them or was it you? Or is it the self doubt and wondering if maybe that you really are all those bad things that you were told? So I guess I'll kind of I'll answer that question both ways. So the self doubt as to whether or not to stay or go, if you're in a relationship, because and it's full of cognitive dissonance. So when I'm using the term cognitive dissonance, we're talking about how people justify what they do. And so it's people, it's this distress, mental distress that a person feels when their beliefs and their behaviors don't match up. So if a person has the belief that marriage is forever, right, and that they only want to be married to a person who is a decent person who's faithful, let's say, right, and then they find out that their partner's cheating on them, it's going to cause them a lot of mental distress to stay with the person that they know is cheating on them because it doesn't match their original belief, right? So in order to get around that, in order to get the beliefs and the behaviors to line up, they're going to have to justify it. So they're going to have to tell themselves, well, this person cheated, but maybe it was because of something I did, or maybe it was because this other woman threw herself at him, right? So they're going to justify the behavior in order for them to be okay with it, in order for them to continue to stay in the relationship. So a lot of people struggle with self-doubt and whether or not they should stay or go. And I encourage people, bottom line, what you want to look at is this person, do they have a sincere level of accountability for their behavior? Are they able to articulate what they did wrong? Are they able to apologize for what they did wrong? Are they willing to take action in order to right that wrong? Are they solutions oriented? Because problematic, manipulative people generally aren't. They're very quick to end a relationship. It's their way or the highway. They don't work. They have this unrealistic level of perfection that's expected within themselves and within other people. And so if it's just, you can't work with that. Like, a relationship needs to be based on open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. If those elements are not there, then there is no relationship possible. So that's kind of what I would look for. And that, I think, once you get that framework in place, that'll kind of answer that question of whether or not to stay or go. Because if those elements are not there, then in my opinion, and that person has no accountability for their behavior, then those elements aren't going to ever be there. At least not anytime soon. So there's your answer. Cognitive dissonance, most people, unfortunately, it takes them a tremendous amount of pain to break through that cognitive dissonance. So, I use the example a lot, like you see on shows like Jerry Springer, right, or Maury Povich, or those kinds of shows where this person's cheated on them 26 times, and it's just they've got it's just this circus. I mean, they just have this pattern of like really awful behavior and all of this stuff, and this person continues to stay with them, right? There's generally kind of that straw that breaks the camel's back, and every person has their own breaking point, just like an alcoholic, right? They have their own, you've got to hit rock bottom, and for different people it's different things. And so this is why I encourage people to write out that list of for when you miss him or her, because that will help to cut through that cognitive dissonance, because it's really easy to start it's that slippery slope into thinking, well, nobody's perfect and we can work on this. And there's so many things that are good about our relationship and kind of whatever we're telling ourselves, you know, whatever justifications we're using. It's really important that we keep ourselves in reality and we focus on, what kind of behavior does this person really have? Because words are cheap, or words are free, right? Words are free and easy. So to not pay attention to words, right? Pay attention to actions. So if this person has troubling behavior, and writing it all down in like a bullet point list so you can easily and quickly, like, when you're having those low moments of, I miss this person, I miss certain things about this person, I want to be in a relationship, that you can go through and you can read this list quickly and you're like, oh yeah, right. And it wakes you up is what it does. So that is really helpful to cut through the cognitive dissonance. I think support groups are incredibly helpful for that as well, because you're not left alone to try to untangle things. And cognitive dissonance is very much like a fog, very much like it. And it's really hard to find your way out of it if you're alone in it. And so this is what's so great with support groups. Even if you don't actively participate, even if you just go through and you're reading the different chats in there, hearing reading other people's stories, because we all are telling different versions of the same story. So that's eerie is really what it is, but you'll see that time and time and time again. So, just being around people that get you and they understand the situation and they get the situation, and that way you can go there and you can say to the support groups people, hey, you know what, I'm having a really low day today, there's a lot of things that I'm missing about this person, and people will be there to support you because they're going through the exact same thing too. So I would just utilize as many utilize as many of these different resources as you possibly can to help get you through this, and realize that you're not always going to feel this way. I think that's important to know. Like, there is hope, and you can get through the other side of this, and there will come a point in your life, where you look back and you just think, I can't believe I ever got tangled up with somebody like that. And you'll see them for what they are. And there's elements that I tell myself this, if I find myself missing, Jack or Steve or whatever, it's like, what, there's a lot of, I missed who I thought they were. Like, who I thought they were very different from who they turned out to be. And so it's okay to miss the person that you thought was, because that person's probably had a lot of great things about him or her, right? So it's okay to feel the feelings and then just let them go. Don't get tangled up in them. Get help. Get help in place, ideally, before you need help. BBR says, Dana, I think we should all pitch in and buy you a new sofa. You look so uncomfortable. Yes, I know I am. I do need to get a new sofa. This little futon thing was supposed to be temporary, and I had some people over the other night, and I just was like, yeah, this has got to go. I need to get a real couch in here. Holocene Man says, we could do a GoFundMe for a new couch for Dana. That's hilarious. Let's see. True Love says, Dana, I know my ex would have stayed with me if I moved away with him. He was dying to move to this other state. Because I wouldn't, he got her to do it instead. Said if I moved there, he'd leave her. Is that guilt? That's just a bunch of ridiculousness. And I hope that you can see that, right? Because you don't want to be with any person that would be like, yeah, I got this other person to move all the way out here with me, but if you moved out here, I would drop her like a hot potato. Like, you don't need that. Like, nobody needs that. I wouldn't want to even be friends with the person. I wouldn't want to even know a person that would treat another human being like that. So, it's not flattering, right? Like it's not even flattering that he said that. That's it shows his lack of character is what that shows. So I hope that you can see that for what it is, and not get tangled up in trying to see that as anything that's like romantic or positive, because there's nothing positive about him saying that. Like that is just a bunch of a drama and dysfunction, and it just shows you that he has not changed. And if he would up and leave her after she moved to another state for him, believe me, he'd have no problem up and leaving you for something else. It's just shows the behind the scenes, the lack of empathy, the lack of remorse. So, okay, let me scroll up here. Marie says, she said, I've noticed paying attention to body language is important too. I found this to be very revealing. That's interesting. You know, I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that it is. Um, and I guess I'm trying to think back with Jack and Steve if there were in a, the red flags that I saw early on. Body language really wasn't like one of, I mean, but of course everybody's situation's different. That wasn't some of the bigger red flags that I encountered. It was really just the moving to, it's stuff that I would not even fall for these days. Like I just was really naive, and I guess I wanted to believe what I wanted to believe. I was lonely, and they were kind of seemingly the answer to they were everything that I was looking for at that point in my life. I didn't realize how vulnerable I was at the time. And, it's scary. That's a great point. So trying to cope says, we're talking about PTSD here, and she says, a trick that she had learned having to do with PTSD is name things with senses, like 5 things I see, 5 things I hear, 5 things I smell, 5 sensations in my body. I like that. So all of that it's very grounding, right? And it's very bringing a person into the moment. And I think telling yourself, our brain, when all those PTSD symptoms, it's because our brain is not feeling safe, and so it goes into survival mode, right? So reminding yourself, I am here now, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. I'm learning to trust my judgment. I am learning how to identify problematic behavior. I love myself. I value myself. I am working hard to keep myself safe. And just kind of doing some affirmations around that to just get your brain to just relax and realize that you see, you're hearing the messages that it's sending to you, and that you're not ignoring them, that you're embracing them and realizing, thank you, brain, thank you for bringing this to my attention. And I agree, this is incredibly scary stuff that we went through, and I'm going to do my best to, to keep us safe. And I hear the messages, and just acknowledging that, and just calming yourself down and just being in the moment. I really like that. El Anya asks, peace and light, dear Dana. How do I deal with the hoovering, the constant back and forth? One moment he's nice, and then his other side shows up. I just don't want to fall for it or even entertain it. So, anticipation is a big one. So it sounds like you know that what that crazy train is like, right? So it's the whole sweet, mean cycle, the Dr. Jekyll, the Mr. Hyde kind of stuff. And so once you are aware of it, now you can start anticipating it. And so kind of planning ahead. And so if this person, if he's, hoovering you in person or through text or through Facebook, these kinds of things, then you can kind of develop your own action plan. Then you can decide, like, okay, well, I can change my name on Facebook, or I can block him, or I can block his number, or I can change my cell phone number, or you can start kind of brainstorming potential solutions to all of this. And then doing, like we mentioned earlier, doing your list that I call the, for when you miss him, right? And so you're just putting bullet points there of all of the different painful things that he's done. So it reminds you. So when when he does start to hoover and he's telling you everything that you want to hear, right? And it's kind of sucking you in and you're thinking that maybe this relationship could work and all these things, that you go back and you read that list, and that way you don't fall for it. That way you won't even entertain it, because you're going to go read that list before you respond, before you any of it. But ideally, if you can go as no contact as possible, that is like the ideal way. And just if you happen to run into him around town or anything like that, just go gray rock. And so, which is where you're as exciting and as reactive as a gray rock. So, which is to say, not at all, right? So you're not arguing with him, you're not giving him attention. It's just the bare minimum conversation. You're not talking about anything good in your life, you're not talking about anything bad in your life, you're not talking about anything emotional. It's just very flat, not angry, not bitter, just kind of like you don't care. You're just kind of like lukewarm oatmeal. Like you just meh, like you just don't care, right? Like you bumped into him, like it's like you're as emotional as if you were to have bumped into somebody you went to, I don't know, ballet camp with when you were in 5th grade, that you didn't even, do you know what I mean? Like it's just sort of like, oh, hey, how's it going? Okay, cool. Like, and then you just drive on with your life. That kind of thing. So support groups, huge fan. I have my own. There's many online. Mine on my website. My website is narcissistsupport.com. Go to the tab for support group, and that really helps to, because you're reading these other stories of other people that are being hoovered and what they're saying and how they're reacting, or if they get back into it when they come back onto the forum, like 3 weeks later, and they're like, you know what, lesson learned, here's what happened. And so I think just reading these other stories can be really helpful, because it's like, oh, right, I need to remember this, I need to not forget this, right? So there's a lot of resources out there. Cecilia's funny. She says, Trader Joe's quinoa oatmeal is my breakfast of choice. That with the meatless sausages. Yum. I guess it's because I talked about the lukewarm oatmeal. Yeah, a little bit of trivia. I am a big fan of steel cut oats and apple and cinnamon. But I also love the meatless sausages too. I do that. And then I have, like on a Sunday morning, I'll make myself pancakes and meatless sausage, and it's good. Let's see. I have to go here pretty soon. So let me scroll up. This chat, I swear, even with a mouse, it's not the most user-friendly. Oh, yes. Somebody had asked earlier about gaslighting and some examples of it. Kevin says, trying to explain gaslighting is one thing, but it's near impossible to explain the impact as it's internal. Worse yet, if you express it emotionally, if the narcissist is still around, they can try to use that against you. Yes. So gaslighting, it's named after, the term comes from an old movie, I think it was 1944 film called Gaslighting. And in the film, it was a a criminal, this guy had actually murdered his aunt for her money. And he had married this other wealthy woman, again, like identifying sources of supply, right? And she had somehow kind of stumbled on to knowing that he had possibly murdered his aunt. And no, she had, I think, stumbled on to the fact that he had this like double life, like his name wasn't what she thought it was, and all these things. And so she began to see kind of like cracks, and she began to see his mask slipping is what it was. And so he begins to mess with her sanity in order to intentionally try to drive her insane. And so he would do little things throughout the movie, like he would accuse her of stealing, but he was actually taking items and then putting them in her purse and then accusing her of stealing. He's like, I can't find my watch. I can't find it anywhere. And he's like, did you take it? Did you take it again? Because you keep stealing and I can't trust you. And she's like, what? No, that's crazy. I didn't do any of this. And then he'll start like rummaging through her drawers and in her dresser, and he dumps out her purse, and in the purse is the watch, and he starts, accusing her, and then she starts thinking like, did I steal that? Like, how did I not know that I stole that watch? And she just starts losing her mind. And then he begins kind of setting up these different scenarios of the same thing around town, making her look like she's losing her mind. So gaslighting in real life, like that's an extreme example. That person is definitely a sociopath. Narcissists, when they gaslight, when they spin reality, I think a lot of times they don't necessarily know or intend to do it. It's just this real deep dysfunction within them that like they project a lot of what they're doing onto us, and then they just, it's just bizarre. It's just really, really bizarre, but it's absolutely crazy making for the person who's going through it, because they'll often say things that are the exact opposite. So they tend to focus on what your strengths are, because they don't have them. So let's say, for example, if you were a really talented piano player, right? They might say something like, gosh, I can't stand you banging around on that piano. You can't even, it's not even tuned, and you don't even know what you're doing. It's just a bunch of noise. And so then the target of this abuse thinks that they are the problem, that they can't play the piano. Or they might say something like, gosh, you're so stupid. I don't know how I ever wound up with you. But really, you're not stupid at all. Like, you're incredibly intelligent. Or, you know, boy, you can't even string, two words together. You just are a terrible communicator, and you've got this huge communication issue, but actually you're the one that's trying to work towards a solution in the relationship and trying to figure out what their issue is. But they're spinning it around and making it seem like you're the one that wants to fight. That's probably a better example. You're the one that wants to fight, and that they're just tired of fighting. They're tired of fighting. They're the victim of you. That kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, it's just really, it's exhausting. So you can find the movie Gaslight online. So it's, if you Google it, I think there's the old version from like 1920s, maybe 1910, old version out there that's free. So Denny says, sometimes I worry that the narcissists are going to completely take over. They're everywhere. Wow. Roxanne says, my ex actually said he was not going to stop until I'm put in a mental ward. He tried to take my daughter from me. A lot of them will do that. So there's this whole syndrome called parental alienation syndrome. And that's what, when they start spinning things around, right? And then they're making it to seem like, one parent is like you, right? Like they're saying, okay, you're mentally unstable, you're the problem, you're abusive, you're the narcissist. They're putting all of their behavior onto you. And for those that are in the middle of this, so if you're in this relationship, because these attacks, that's exactly what it is. It's attacks, one-sided attacks that come out of nowhere for a person. It catches a person off guard and it gets them off balance. And so it's this whole kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And it's very confusing when a person's going through it. Victims oftentimes feel like when they get out of these relationships, they wonder if they really are the problem, if they could have worked harder at the relationship, or maybe that they are manipulative, or maybe that they are the narcissist. Their reality, they have taken on their abuser's reality as their own. And so it's very, very confusing, and trying for them to sort out like what happened, who's the problem, kind of what did they miss. I mean, there's so many elements to understanding this and to healing and all of this. But I would encourage you. So if they are saying things like that, right, where you're the problem, you're the manipulative one, asking yourself, do other people have you ever had this dynamic with other people? Have other people ever told you the same things? Because odds are they haven't. And so that can be, and paying attention to your gut instinct too. And then asking, if you have a good friend or somebody that knows you, to ask them, that you trust, that's the key there. You really got to trust them, is to say, you know what, this is how I'm feeling in this relationship, or this is what I'm being told. And friend to friend, what do you think about this? And see what they have to say, like what their input is. Because it just can be very, very confusing when you're dealing with a manipulative person. Caprice says, how come I only found out now that these people exist? And how come there is so little awareness among normal people that there are people like this? Narcissists who literally seek to destroy you. Yeah, I know. I felt very much the exact same way. I used to work, my history is, you know, when I worked at a domestic violence shelter, I would teach classes of the red flags of problematic behavior, and then I found myself in two very emotionally abusive relationships with two freaking sociopaths like after that, and I didn't see it coming, and they were very charming the whole time, and then everything fell apart. And I didn't know what I went through. And you would think, like, if anybody would know, it probably would have been me, because I was teaching classes on it. I had hundreds of hours of education on domestic violence and abuse and all of this. It's one thing to learn about it. It's another thing to actually live it. And so, but yes, it's very frustrating. And crazy making, it's its own special kind of crazy making when you go through something like this and you feel like that you're crazy because nobody else understands except for those of us that have lived it. And so when I was going through all my stuff, I had started seeing a therapist. I was trying to make sense of everything, and nobody picked up on like that he was a sociopath, or kind of what was going on, or like what had happened. And I had a lot of PTSD type symptoms, and night terrors, and anxiety, and depression, and paranoia, and and nobody knew. And I just thought it was me. I just didn't know what my problem was. And stumbling into a support group, later, it was so validating. It was so validating. Like, I can't even describe the feeling. I mean, it just made me want to cry, because it was like, it's not me. Like, it's not me. I'm not crazy for feeling that way, or for experiencing that. But yeah, it's frustrating that there's not more validation and education that's out there, that's more mainstream, because there really does need to be that. And so here's another thing that I fell into after all that. So after I went through all my stuff, I really had a hard time kind of making sense of it all, right? So like my friends and family, it was just kind of this mindset. I guess I even had it too, where it was sort of like, well, I just got conned. I kind of got conned emotionally. What are the odds of it happening again, right? Well, then a couple years later, crashed into Steve, and then again, like, well, what are the odds of, like, what am I missing? Like, why does this keep happening to me? What's going on here? And you know, it, and I couldn't figure it out. And what was making me nuts was the red flags that I'd glossed over were red flags that most people would gloss over. And then it was the realization of, oh, oh, so a lot of people, kind of what you're saying, tend to think that there's kind of two main types of people out in the world. That you have people that are toxic, like abusive or toxic people, and then you have normal people, and that's it. And that's where I was hung up for a long time. Then I realized, oh no, wait a minute, nope. You have abusive and toxic, and then you have normal, and then you have healthy, because there's a lot of dysfunction in normal people. And so that was a part of what was kind of keeping me stuck. Is, here I am looking for counsel, looking for advice from quote unquote normal people. Well, they've got their own level of dysfunction. So I wasn't getting kind of healthy counsel, and I wasn't even really aware that healthy people were in I just didn't, I don't know. My understanding of the different types of people and the different types of advice and the different types of, you know, understandings of things was very skewed. And so, you know, kind of realizing now, so like back then it was sort of like, well, yeah, everybody, kind of this attitude of, well, but nobody's perfect, right? And then kind of realizing, well, healthy people aren't perfect, but they're not abusive. So a person that does not are not your only two options, right? So it's not like, okay, well, nobody's perfect, or they're abusive. It's abusive behavior is not okay of any kind. So not even just like extreme abusive behavior, but like name calling, screaming, yelling, put down, silent treatment, stonewalling, belittling, demeaning, these kinds of behaviors. That's not okay. And not everybody does that. So somebody had just said, oh, that was a great comment. Where is it? ALF says everyone can be toxic for a certain person. I don't know if I agree with that. I think people can be just not the right people, right? Like we can date people and just not click, and but that doesn't mean that we're toxic to them. Because again, kind of how I'm defining it as healthy. Healthy is open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented, right? So the opposite of that, which would be closed, dishonest, open, honest, sincere, insincere, or manipulative, and then not solutions oriented. So it's more of a win-lose control dynamic. Toxic people tend to have kind of that negative dynamic, but just because a person's not a good fit doesn't mean that they're necessarily toxic. It's just that they're not a good fit. Yes. Okay. So Capri says, of course, no one's perfect, but this was nothing like my previous relationships. Yes. And I experienced the exact same thing. And so when people would tell me that too, right? They would say, well, nobody's perfect, or this was just a bad breakup, or, these kinds of things. I got stuck on that. I'm like, no, no, no. Like what I just went through was like way beyond the realm of normal behavior. Like and I think a lot of us feel that way. Like we might not know the words narcissist or sociopath. We might not even identify what we went through as abusive, because we might have our own ideas of what abusive behavior looks like. But we do know that what we experienced was not normal. And generally because it's abusive behavior that we just have never come across before. So it's a lot to try to put together. But again, strongly encourage support groups. I have my own. I have a group on Facebook. It's called Healing After Narcissistic Abuse. And then if you, that's the link. The link to it is facebook.com/groups/healing after narcissistic abuse. Or you can search for me on Facebook. The group is called Narcissist Support. And then in parentheses, it says from YouTube. Okay, so Trying to Cope says, Dana, can you please address this from S9? My problem is that I want to identify the triggers so I can work on them, but triggers bring on other triggers. How can I work on them if they keep bringing more? I would say to not force things. Okay? So if you will have plenty of time to work on all of this, and you're going to be able to work on it, and you are even now, even being here, even discussing it, even writing this question. This is forward momentum. This is part of healing because it's part of understanding, and understanding is that first part of healing. So just working on the things as they surface that you're ready to work on, and realize, like, okay, if you're feeling triggered, if you're having, if by you, like, quote unquote, working on things is causing you more stress, then it's just not time. It's not time. And that's okay. And you just kind of back up a little bit and you work on the stuff that you do have clarity about and that you are ready to work on, right? And then maybe you revisit the things that made you uncomfortable. You revisit that in a week or in a month. And realizing too that healing isn't something that just kind of happens like one day you're just done, right? So there's going to be all of these waves, but don't get discouraged by that either, okay? Like there's all of these different waves of healing and understanding and processing what you went through, and you're going to continue to have aha moments, and your brain is continue to piece together kind of what happened to you over time. And you're going to be hopefully getting a lot of positive things out of the situation, because yes, there's a lot of negative for sure, right? There's a lot of negative in this, but there's also a lot of lessons that can come from this, and a lot of benefit that it can teach you about self-love. It can teach you about self-esteem. It can teach you a lot about things about yourself that you didn't even realize that you needed to work on, or that you needed to or wanted to examine, or or anything. So the thing with the triggers, that, like I said, that will kind of, that'll simmer down in time. And that's really common. That's kind of the whole part of the PTSD component to it. So it's really common to be triggered by seeing this person's name, even if it's a totally different person, or hearing this person's name on TV, right? Or seeing the same make and model of car that they drive, or things like that. That kind of stuff does die down in time. So just kind of realizing that, and just being good to yourself. Ideally getting a mantra. I'm a big fan of that. So kind of whatever, and just a short phrase that's self-soothing. So maybe telling yourself something like, you know what, kiddo, I love you. You're a good person. You're a good person, and you're here now, and you didn't deserve this. Or okay, yep, onward and upward. Or yep, I light and love. Or something that brings peace to you, where you can kind of slow down that momentum after feeling triggered. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Okay, guys, it is getting late. Lauren says, what is my mantra, Dana? My newest mantra is right now it's from Louise Hay, and I don't know if I kind of reframed it or if it's written in there. I don't remember which, but saying to myself, I am loved and I am loving. Because when after I read that book, I found myself having a lot of resistance to that idea, and I was really surprised that I did. I did not expect to encounter that within myself. And so because I had resistance to it, I thought I really need to sit with this because I felt like my heart was hardened in ways that I didn't realize that it was. And so but it's been great. So my experience with that mantra, with the I am loved and I am loving, is that it's helped me, I think, reclaim my power and control in a lot of ways so I can act in loving ways. And so I tell myself this probably 100 times a day. So like doing little things, like I sent both my parents a happy St. Patrick's Day card, right? So just being like, I'm doing this because I am loving, like doing this, you know, holding a door open to a stranger or giving a smile to a person who is in distress or, finding like, the cool thing with the mantra is it gives your brain an intention, right? So something to focus on. So if you can focus on something positive, that sets your course. So you can kind of decide, okay, this is what I'm going to focus into, right? You could say something like, now it's time for me. Like, I am healing because I deserve to heal. Kind of whatever resonates with, and you can change it up. There's no rules on this, right? So like you can have a different mantra every day. You can have one once a month, kind of however you want to do it. And just focus on being like super good to yourself and super loving to yourself and doubling up, tripling up on your self-care and realizing that this is all about finding you again. And it's an exciting, glorious adventure that you're going to be going on because you had a lot of stuff from this abuse that has been broken down, and but the beauty of having your life shattered and blown into a million pieces is that you get to choose which pieces you want to rebuild with. And so there's a lot of power in that. So you're kind of just this blank canvas and you can do so much with it, and life is a journey and it's all about kind of the decisions that you make from here on out and what things, changing your perception of what things mean to you. And realizing that how this person treated you is a reflection of them, and it's not a reflection of you. And the things that they told you about you were nonsensical, and I'm sure that they were lies. And just deciding, you know what, like I'm not going to give away my power and control to have somebody else decide to identify me and to define me. Like I'm going to define myself from here on out. And this is what I want my life to be about. So yes, getting out of our self-shame, Roxanne says that she had a narcissist yell at her at the gym the other day, and it really got triggered, and she shut down for a few minutes, and it was scary. Well, yeah, and that's normal, and that stuff will pass, right? That'll pass with time, and that in many ways is a very appropriate reaction, right? So to a very inappropriate situation, like that guy shouldn't have been yelling at you. So, you're doing the best you can. And that could be another mantra. So if you're having a hard time kind of moving forward, just reminding yourself, you know what? I have come a long way. I have come a long way and I'm really doing a great job with this. And boy, I'm learning so much about myself and about other people. And I'm really proud of myself for doing such a good job with all of this. And just kind of being your, kind of parenting your own inner child and just being kind to yourself and just releasing all of that shame, all of that guilt, all of that embarrassment, all of those negative, the anger, the resentment, all of those negative, all of those uncomfortable feelings, right? And just releasing them and being like, you know what? I did the best I could with the information I had at the time. That's all any of us can do, right? And so just Another affirmation, and Louise Hay, again, her channel is called Louise Hay. She's got a lot of affirmations on there. Another one that I really like that she says over and over again is just, I accept myself. Like, I accept myself. It's hard. It's hard to say that, right? Because we're like, well, that feels like a lie because there's so many things I want to change about. We all want to change about ourselves, right? But to just say that and just be like, it doesn't mean that I don't want to change things. It just means that I'm okay with where I'm at. Like, I'll evolve and I'll grow when the time is right. But, just being kind and good to yourself. Oh, I like that. Elise says her mantra is, I'm facing my fears and I'm getting healthy. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And you deserve it, and that you deserve happiness. And there's a lot of things right about you. Lauren says it's so hard to say affirmations. It is. It is. Um, but it helps over time to just keep saying them. True Love says, Dana, I want to date, yet I don't know if I want a man to touch me or kiss me. I really cried about this the other day. I only wanted my ex in that way. These issues, are they common after CPTSD? Yes. Yes, that's all very, very common. A lot of people, myself included, this feeling of feeling broken, like broken beyond repair, that nobody else is going to understand, that I'm never going to find another person that I feel this way about, or that I'm never going to trust again. But that's all very fear-based kind of thinking. And so, you know, it's all an illusion. And so, trying not to push yourself, like you're not, obviously, right? Like you're not ready to date right now, and realizing that that's okay. That's okay. Like this is your time right now to work on you, and to focus on learning how to love yourself, learning how to be single, and how to be alone. And being alone doesn't have to be the same thing as being lonely, right? So just focus on building up a life that you really, really love. And so when you're feeling down, again, just trying to parent yourself and just be like, you know what, kiddo, you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot. And we're just going to take it a day at a time. So, you know, and just kind of releasing that fear and just bringing as much like light and love and acceptance into your now as you possibly can. And again, gratitude is really great for slowing down those fear-based momentum, you know. So okay, let's El Anya. Uh, let's see. Well, this will be the last question for tonight. Asks Dana, do abusers know what they're doing? Do they behave in a hurtful way on purpose, or is it more of a subconscious thing? My husband acts so insulted when I bring up anything he does. We were talking about this earlier. So I really, in this book that I'm reading right now, which is fantastic, on healing from a verbally abusive relationship, she talks about this, and I would agree with her. So there's really kind of two different camps of abusive people. There's more of like the sociopaths, which enjoy exploiting and using and abusing people, and then there's abusive people that really they're not really conscious about what they're doing, and they're projecting a lot of their behavior onto us, and if they justify it in their mind, and they have just spun things around in their mind to where that they are the victim of us. And it's it it's just crazy making. She's got different strategies in the book, because they're being manipulative, right? um, oh, it's exhausting to even think about. Like, they're being manipulative, but then they'll accuse you of being manipulative, right? So like if you bring something up, then all of a sudden you're the manipulative one. And it's hard because, sometimes really for it to click with an abusive person, who knows how long that would take for them to actually see the error of their ways. But I don't, I don't, I don't think a lot of them are necessarily super conscious of it. They know that certain behavior is not socially acceptable. Like they know that it's not okay to hit the person that you're with or to call names. But other things, like they wouldn't maybe do that in public. They'll hide some behavior because they realize that it's not socially acceptable. But in their mind, they don't think that it's wrong. Like they really do feel justified, right? And this is kind of the whole mantra for an abusive person. Their mantra is, well, but look at what you made me do, right? So there's no accountability there. So it's always some form of, but look at what you made me do. Like, look at what you made me do. I had to go out and cheat because you were picking fights with me at home, right? Or you gained weight, so I had to go cheat. Or you lost weight, or, right? Or, what you think I like hitting you? Like, look at what you made me do. The house was a mess and the kids were crying and I work long, and so your behavior drove me to do this. And so, you know, they, you know, some of the behavior, but if the more subtle kind of manipulative stuff where they spin things around and then they start projecting their behavior onto you. That kind of stuff, I think that's just it's not conscious. Like it just, they fight like little kids. Their world is like a little kid. So yes, Holocene Man says nearly everything they do or say is a double bind in one way or the other. Yeah, yeah. Practical Dreamer says the one knew logically that he was being triggered or having knee jerk reactions, but he couldn't stop himself. My husband had once or twice realized he was acting like his father, but he couldn't stop himself. Yes. See, that's the thing. Like, there might be, slow things down a little bit. Like, they might realize, okay, I'm acting like my father, or they might, but it's still, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, there's such like deep seated dysfunctional ways of the way they perceive the world and the way that they perceive their own stress. And I mean, we're talking probably years of intensive psychotherapy to get a person to work through that and to identify. I mean, that's what's hard because they don't really see that there's a problem of it. So it's like you almost really do need to capture it on video or capture it on text message to say like, but this is what you said, because their perception. See, that's the hard thing, right? So I feel bad for the therapists out there because their perception of events is skewed. The victim's perception of events is skewed. So you have two people that have very different realities, right? And so the victim is often buying into the abuser's reality. So they don't know what's going on. They're still thinking that they're the problem, right? Or that they're at least part of the problem. So it's hard unless there's cameras or hard evidence. It's really hard to untangle and figure out what on earth is going on here, because manipulative people can present so well when they are in therapy, and so it's a mess. It's really difficult. So yes, okay, guys. So I gotta call it a night, but I will see you guys next week. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for participating. Happy birthdays to the birthdays that we did have. That's exciting. And, I wish you guys just all the light and love this week, and just be extra good to yourself. And, I would encourage you to think about getting a mantra and kind of what you can say to encourage yourself and support yourself. And thinking about some different ways that you can brainstorm ways to love yourself this week. You know, like how can you treat yourself with value in this upcoming week? It doesn't have to cost money, it doesn't have to be super time consuming, but just kind of what are some ways that you can treat yourself with love and value this week? So, yes, and be excellent to each other. I like that. So, as always, guys, lots of love to you. You know, you're not alone, you are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So, take care, guys, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.